what it's like to drive in the car with me through Suburbia. Pear. Maple. Pear. Maple. Daylily. Hosta. Daylily. Hosta. Over and over again. These overplanted species are just plopped in lawns as far as the eye can see. And I admit, some of these plants can be kind of pretty sometimes, but this setup is problematic for a variety of reasons. I mean, for one, most of the plants you see are exotic, so they're either from foreign continents or they've been altered from their natural form. And some of these, like the Keller pears or the barberries, are extremely invasive, and they do wreak havoc on our local plant and animal communities. And that's what frustrates me so much, that when I'm driving through Suburbia or anywhere in Omaha for that matter, it's really hard to find an ecologically sound landscape. I've been learning about Nebraska's native plant and animal communities for a few years now. What started as a hobby of following gardening experts has blossomed into a passion that motivates me every morning. And that's why today I'll be talking about the environmental issue associated with lawns, the native solution to them, and then give you the tools you need to convert them to sustainable eye candy. Now, we've all heard over and over again how threatened the Amazon rainforest is, it's being burnt down and it's shrinking. And it's very, very true, and it's very concerning. But did you know that America's tallgrass prairie is the most threatened ecosystem on the planet? We have less than 2% remaining. America's converting land to lawn at half the rate that the Amazon is shrinking. And as a result, kids today see 35% fewer butterflies and 50% fewer birds than their parents did 40 years ago. All of this was stated by prairie-inspired garden designer and my inspiration for this topic, Benjamin Vogt, from his 2021 YouTube video. So nearly all of America's tallgrass prairie, which includes eastern Nebraska, has been converted to farmland or is now an urban area. And that's troublesome because actually 90% of insect species can only reproduce on plants that they evolved with. So all the plants you see, they're either like crops or plants that we put in the landscape, they can't even use them. This statement is supported by ecologist Karen Burkhart and her co-authors in a 2006 study of conventional versus native landscapes, when they found that native insect and bird abundance was always much higher on properties with native plants than with these conventional landscape plants. So when these host plants disappear, so do the insects. And when the insects disappear, so do all the species that rely on them for food and pollination, including humans eventually. Another major problem with lawns is supported by a 2004 publication from the Massachusetts Office of Environmental Affairs, which states that lawns account for up to 60% of household water use, and one person's mowing creates as much pollution as driving a car for 16,000 miles every year. So by not even getting into the fertilizer and pesticide aspect of lawns, we can see how they waste our resources and our water and pollute. I mean, honestly, we may let the dog out on them every once in a while, or sometimes we'll kick a ball around on them. But in no world can America's obsession with pesticide-ridden wastelands the size of Georgia be justified. The normal planting islands of exotic species in oceans of lawn and concrete has to change in order to stop mass extinction and curb our water use as we enter the uncertainties of climate change. But thankfully, there's a simple and straightforward solution that I'll now walk you through. All we have to do is try to replicate these native plant and animal communities in our lawns, which are already basically de facto prairies waiting to be born. The first way to do it is what I recommend most people do, and that's to reach out to a native landscape designer like Benjamin Vogt of Monarch Gardens in Lincoln. The designer will help you choose the best plants that are adapted for your site and leave you with a polished, finished product. The second way to do it is to do it yourself. So do your own research on the best plants for your site, and then either grow these plants from seed or buy them from a reputable nursery. Now this is the most affordable option and is the method that I'm using, but not everybody has my experience to be able to appease homeowners associations and your neighbors. But I can tell you that learning how to is as easy as reading the book Prairie Up by Benjamin Vogt. Longtime gardener and Northern Magazine editor Mary Shear agrees with me in a 2022 review, in the book gives gardeners the tools they need to successfully prairie up their landscape, whether it's your garden bed or an entire yard. So whether you choose to convert your lawn yourself through a book like Prairie Up, or to reach out to a landscape designer like Vogue, we definitely have the tools to tackle this issue. However, even though this is a very simple and straightforward solution, especially here in eastern Nebraska, there's a balance that's required. We have to keep in mind that most people won't understand why your yard resembles a local biome, but we can counter that by maintaining some degree of order. For instance, we can choose plants with short heights and spaced out bloom times that will grow happily together. We can also include cues to care, like an informative sign, garden art, benches, patios, and lawn pathways. So don't get me wrong, we can still keep some lawn. Just not this much. We don't need this much. As a social scientist studying America's lawn obsession, Betsy Breyer explains in a 2015 In Defense of Plants episode that tall landscapes could block important lines of sight and lead to a decreased perception of safety. So for the sake of safety and having some for playtime, we can keep some lawn. We don't need this. Combination of all these factors will ensure an ecologically successful and visually appealing landscape. In conclusion, I first discussed how America has been destroying local plant and animal communities, followed by how we can all implement this native solution. Lastly, I addressed some key considerations that we should make when transitioning away from lawn. Basically, if we fail to change, the mass extinction is just going to continue to spiral out of control, and water use is getting a lot tighter. I mean, for Nebraska, this is a very easy solution to implement. So I hope you can spread this meadow message to family members and friends, implement it yourself this spring, and I mean, I'm personally excited as I begin my journey of killing lawn at a family member's house this spring. But if you're not ready for that, then I hope I've at least inspired you to read more about the issue. A New Garden Ethic by Benjamin Vogt would be a great place to start. And as Vogt says, let's re-prairie suburbia and rethink pretty. Thank you.